How's it going, folks? It's Marshall. I'm doing a video in the middle of the freaking night. What's happening? I'm Marshall. Thanks for joining the show. I'm streaming this live here tonight. Yeah. So first of all, let's just get into this. I'll go ahead and kill the track. That's the track I've been working on. I'll have an update on that. It includes a DeepMind 12. And I'll talk about it a little bit and where I'm at, my progress and everything. So yeah, that's coming up here shortly. First of all, though, I wanted to talk about this right here. So this is from factmag.com. A lot of great articles on this site. I check these guys out a lot. SonicState.com is one of my favorites as well. There's several. So anyway, this is one that I found specifically referring to Behringer's plan to clone the MiniMoog Model D and a couple other synths. Actually, they've announced the ARP 2600, the Oberheim OBXA, and even the, I guess it's called Oscar, OSCAR. I don't know. Anyway, so this has been kind of a hot button topic for a lot of people these days, specifically when it comes to things like the Model D, because that's a really coveted instrument, and it's beyond famous. So there's some hard feelings with some folks that Behringer's planning to clone this. Now, the thing is that the technology within the Model D is not protected any longer. I guess some history of the Moog music. Like they folded at one point and then came back, something to that effect. And I believe that because of that, the original patent or copyright, what have you, was null and void because it belonged to that other corporation or something weird like that. I don't know all the details. That's some gray area there. Anyway, in this article, they talk about some of the legality, and they kind of point out that Behringer's had a history of this with Mackie sued him, Roland sued him over their pedals. Mackie, obviously a manufacturer of mixer boards, etc. So they've got a history of doing this. Now I don't really know how to feel about this, because on one hand, the Model D is something special, and I plan on getting one of the reissues that's come out. But on the other hand, I understand that there's a lot of musicians out there who aren't as fortunate as some of us to have the funds to purchase an instrument like this, because they are expensive. You're looking at least $3,500 US, right around there, for the reissue. If you want an original one, I believe actually the prices on those have come down quite a bit, because they were astronomical before, but I think because of the reissue, they've come down in price somewhat. So I on one hand, I'm like, cool, like it's an affordable Model D clone, and let's be clear, like it's not going to look the same. They've already announced it will be a Euro rack style. There's no keyboard. This is like a rack mounted Model D. So it's not going to look just like this, you know what I'm saying? It's not going to look just like the Model D here. And I think they have a picture of, yeah, so here's Behringer's clone. So with the Model D, I'm kind of like, I don't know how to feel about it. Let's just be honest. I don't know. Because this instrument is something special, and I intend to get one of these. This, I don't know. I don't know if I'll get one or not. I don't know, because there's this. Because now, since this has been reissued, this kind of makes this not as desirable, in my opinion. And $3,500, yes, it's a lot for a mono synth, but it's a classic. So, I don't know. It's something special. Anyway, moving on to, they point out other examples of people cloning, like the XOX box clones a 303. Again, those things don't look anything like what they're attempting to emulate, right? So the XOX box, if anyone has seen those, they look nothing like a 303. They're really big compared to the 303. And actually, side-by-side comparison, some of the ones that I've seen demos of, it doesn't, doesn't sound quite like it either. I mean, again, when you're trying to emulate something, you can have issues with that. So I don't know. Behringer's been pretty innovative lately, though. Their X-Air mixers I really love. I have two of those. I have one in here in the studio, and then I have another one in my mobile rig for shows. So it's like I see they're pushing the envelope. The DeepMind 12 is kind of based on a Roland 106, right? So yeah, and the DeepMind 12 is a great instrument. I made a couple of videos on it before, and actually the track I'm going to play has DeepMind 12 in it. And initially it kind of got off to a rough start with getting one that didn't work initially because of some ribbon cable that get dislodged or something, I don't know. Anyway, so overall I've had it for quite a while now. I really do like it. I am enjoying it. I have no comparison like to it in terms of the Roland 106 that it's cloning, right? So, or I guess it drew inspiration from. It's not a direct clone, obviously. So, but that's kind of think what kicked this off. And some of these instruments like the ARP 2600, that would be cool to have one of those. So I don't know. That would be all right, I guess. The Oberheim OBX-A is an instrument I've always wanted, and I think the Dave Smith OB6 is out, and I've seen some comparisons between that and the OBX-A, and let's just say that the OBX-A sounds a million times better. But also the the Prophet 08, I think is kind of draws some inspiration from the OBX-A. Or at least it can sound like an OBX-A, let's put it that way. So, I mean, this is not anything new. Companies do this a lot. I guess my main thing is if it's legal, have at it. As long as you're not doing anything illegal or immoral, I guess. And that kind of comes to the Curtis chips. So it says right here, Curtis Electro Music, the CEM 3340 chip found in Roland's SH101 and Sequential Circuits Pro 1 was recently cloned by Behringer's Cool Audio company. I don't know if they still make these chips, but I did read something that remarks from the woman who was married to the man that invented this. I think he passed away. Pretty much calling Behringer out as being dicks for cloning it. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I guess I'm kind of impartial. I'm impartial Marshal. How about that? You like that? Yeah, that's cheesy. So I don't know. If they do a good job, the quality is good, they don't have some of these issues that they had with the DeepMind 12. I think a lot of musicians that don't have deep pockets will be very happy with. So I guess that's kind of my 2 cents on that. As long as they're not breaking the law. This one does kind of make me feel a little weird, though. The MiniMoog Model D is. Yeah, but I'm a Moog fanboy, so you gotta, I don't know. But I understand. And I guess, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's really got me torn because there's two sides of this. There's the purists who think that Behringer shouldn't be cloning these instruments. And then there's the other folks who really would like to have something like these vintage classics that aren't made anymore, that cost a fortune. So, and I fall into that category in the sense that a Model D is within my price range-ish. It's still expensive, but it's something that I can obtain. Whereas an ARP 2600, no way. You know, an OBXA, maybe, but probably not. You know, they're expensive. And, you know, it would really be great if we got Roland to come out with the Jupiter 8, like a reissue of that classic. That would be one that I would really like to see come back. But anyway, you know, you've got plenty of clones of the 303. Obviously, Roland just came out with the TB03. It's an instrument that I own. The TB3 they came out with a couple of years ago. I also own that. The problem with these, I wouldn't call it a problem, but it's more Roland's direction and decision to keep things digital, so to speak. That's kind of disappointing in a way, but you know, the analog circuit behavior technology that they put into this, the TR09 and the TR8, they sound really good to me. But again, I don't have the original instruments, so it's hard for me to compare other than what I've seen online. And these things, from what I can tell, come pretty close. So I don't know. Anyway, there's still going to be people that are like, it's not analog, so it's a piece of shit. Well, that's, I guess, a matter of opinion. But again, these instruments are becoming very rare. You know, a lot of them 30 years old-ish, you know, right around there. That's pretty old. So maintenance on them, things like that, gets expensive. Anyway, check out this article. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Let me know what your thoughts are on the whole Behringer's cloning everything story, I guess. It's, yeah, again, it's something I don't know how to feel. On one hand, I understand that, yeah, there's people that want these instruments, can't afford them, and so cheaper alternatives, good for them. On the other hand, these are coveted instruments, and it's hard to see Behringer cloning these. I guess Behringer's kind of had a reputation of being lower end, lower quality, etc. And the DeepMind 12 is something that it's not built like a tank or anything, but it's done pretty good so far, other than the initial issues I had getting one. I haven't had any problems since, so there's that. Anyway, so I want to move on and talk about the latest track that I've been working on using the DeepMind 12. And we're going to use the Ableton push over here. I'll trigger all these. And then, see, I did some rearranging here. This synth wall that used to be all Roland synths, I actually sold my D50, which I'm probably going to regret. And also my SH201, which was just something that I bought because it was the first synth I ever bought, and I kind of wanted to have another one, but I only paid $80 for it, and I sold it for close to 400. So I think I made some good money on that, which is rare. Anyway, so the JP8000 there on the bottom, and the DeepMind 12 there on the top. That's actually, there's one more tier above that, which has a DX7. And if anyone watched my last video, I pretty much destroyed a DX7. It's not actually the DX7 that I have up here that works. I would never destroy a working synthesizer. I guess, unless I really, really hated it. But I don't hate it that much. I hate it a lot, but not enough to kill a working one. So I destroyed a working one. Or I destroyed a broken one. One was already broken. So I still have the working DX7. And I'll probably just get some patches for that thing at some point, but I don't know if I want to dick around with the whole thing. There are some good sounds. Also, I've got Citrus on the computer in Ableton. It's a plugin, an FM synthesis plugin. We're watching a lot of Seamless R on YouTube. It's got a lot of tutorials. I picked that up, see if I can learn a few things about FM synthesis from that and from him. He's a great resource, so I highly recommend you go check out his channel and subscribe if you're interested in any of that. So anyway, yep, so back to this. So DeepMind 12, JP8000. This track is almost complete. I've kind of been going through, and the reason why it's been a little while since you've seen any updates on this is because I picked up a Nintendo Switch. Let me check something. I need to see if I can. Maybe we'll just forego that for now. There's something weird. I think I'm getting bleed in from my radio station, my internet radio station on that shot. I'm not going to mess with that right now because I'm live. So anyway, I'll just play this, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Hold on. This fucking thing. This mouse is giving me shit too. All right, so here we go. I always fuck that up. It goes twice. And that's it. So I kind of played something out of order a little bit and then messed up the build. But yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. So let me kind of explain a little bit about what I've done. So this is pretty close to the final version. So what I have done is I've taken all the plugins out. Everything has been, as my phone goes off 100 times, everything has been bounced to audio. So there's no live plugins. What is live is all the effects, EQing, compression, etc. on the raw sounds. The other thing that I did from the last time you guys seen this track is with the JP8000, and this one took me a couple times to get this correct on some of these. So these are just frozen right now because I'm afraid to flatten them until I'm 100% sure I like this. But basically what I did is I went to the JP8000 over here and I took all of the effects off of the super saw sound that I created on here. And so basically it's just the raw super saw, because initially in the previous versions of the videos on here for this, that sound had effects from the JP8000. Now that's a pain in the ass when you go to process anything, because the sound has already been processed to a certain extent. You've already got reverb and delay, or I should say it's chorus on there. Chorus and delay and all that shit. So that makes it difficult to get a nice clean sound, especially when you're trying to EQ things and set your compression and etc. So what I did is I did go through these and I did take out the effects. So like, for example, this sound. Oops, hold on, let's play it from here. Probably from here. So all the effects you're hearing are from Ableton. So if I turn off my ping pong delay and the chorus, so I try to emulate kind of what the JP8000 is doing in Ableton. It did a pretty good job. So this is the raw super saw, right? And then you put the effects on. And it sounds awesome. So, and I think the original is over here. So let me just turn these off and turn this on so you can kind of hear the difference, if you care about those things. Sorry if that killed your ears. These are a lot louder. Let me bring them down a little bit. Right, so that's that, and then this is my version of effects. So I mean, it's pretty close, not exactly perfect, but it gets the point across, and I'm able to shape the sound a lot easier since the effects aren't on, and makes for a much cleaner mix. So then I did the same thing over here with this one. How are these all off? Am I confusing myself now here? I must have turned that one off. Oh, it's because I'm soloed. There we go. There. So I did the same thing over here. I added the exact same chorus and ping pong delay to this sound. Right. Just put that back. So that's with the effects, and the original version is over here. And we'll turn that one off and turn the effects off in Ableton, and I'll turn this down, make sure it's not too loud. So and then here's mine with the effects. So again, that kind of did the trick. I was getting a pretty muddy mix, especially because these two sounds are the exact same sound from the JP8000. The only difference is one is arpeggiated, the other is not. And there might be a minor scaling difference in terms of the notes played, obviously, but pretty close. And they were having a hard time. I was having a hard time getting them to separate to where you can hear them individually. But I think I did it. And again, let's just play. Sounds pretty good to me. And that's it. So yeah, so that's the update. This is pretty much done. I was thinking about adding some speak and read in there. I decided against that for this track. I think that I don't think it's necessary. I'll probably use that on another track coming up pretty soon. And then there's another one I've been working on that's kind of a gumshoe feel, I guess, like a detective, like old school, like Dick Tracy type of thing, or what's a good example? I can't think of a good example, but like old school, like 20s or 30s era detective kind of sound. That's what it reminds me of anyway. That song, it's called Gumshoe on the Loose for right now. This song right here doesn't even have a name. It's called DeepMind 7 because it's the 7th version of the song, DM12 So anyway, if you have any suggestions for this song, let me know. That'd be great. I'm having a hard time figuring out what to call it. Anyway, so the DeepMind 12 sound, let's get to that. There's two sounds I used from the DeepMind 12. One is this bass line. I'm calling it a bass line. It's kind of not really. Right, it's that sound. And then I used the DeepMind 12 also for a little bit of sound design for this, which is it's kind of a filtered sound. It's got some side chaining on it, etc. Whoa. Anyway, that's kind of a cool sound. Yeah. So that's where I use the DeepMind 12 in here. The percussion, all this stuff in here is the kicks are sampled kicks, but then all the other percussion sounds in here, like the crash, the snare. Well, not the snare. Is it? The snare is something else. But the crash, the hi-hats, the clap. No, the snare is from... Okay, yeah. So the crash, the snare, hi-hat, the clap. Those are all from the TR-09. And then, yeah, this other clap is a sampled clap from a library that I have. And I'm pissing Ableton off because I'm clicking on everything in here, I guess. Impact snare, same thing. This riser, I actually built this in... Oh, no, this was Serum. This is actually a preset in Serum. It's really good. And I was using it on this other song, but now since I put it in here and I think it sounds perfect, I'm going to have to make a whole new riser from scratch on the other song. Synth master is this sound right here. And that turned out pretty good. Over here, I've got a grouping for Omnisphere. This was kind of an atmospheric sound. And it's kind of subtle. It's in the background, but it adds just a little bit of texture, I think. And that's all it does. This like really ethereal type, ambient type sound. This is a noise sweep that I created in MiniMoog V2, Arturia's MiniMoog V2. This came out really good as well. It's just white noise that I'm filtering with some side chaining on it, right, and a little bit of effects. Yeah, then the bass. I was thinking about changing the bass line in this because this again is from the Arturia MiniMoog V2. I have all this analog gear in here, and I was like, why don't I use the MS-20 or the Sub 37 or something? But I just decided to leave it. I think it sounds fine. And I don't, I don't want to spend too much more time on this thing. I've spent a lot of time already. And then obviously the DeepMind 12 stuff, which you heard. Silent I'm using for, I believe, an effect. Oh no, I've got an arpeggio. And this plays along with the DeepMind 12 melody. Let me collapse some of this stuff. I'm playing the same thing there. So they're just kind of layered. It's real subtle again. In the final mix, you probably can't even hear it, but during the chorus of the song is when that extra melody plays from Silent. It just adds a little bit more texture again to the sound, a little more emphasis during the chorus portion. And then there's a sweep. Then there's this mini riser. I called it a mini riser, but it's just because it's not as big as the one that I made in Theorem in terms of length. It's a lot shorter. This I actually built up in Reason real quick and sampled it out with effects on it. And then I'm just triggering it in a drum rack in Ableton. Because this is the problem this is why I make all my audio clean and then put the effects on in Ableton. Because I want, the way I play this stuff is with the push, when I trigger a scene or a specific sound in here, I want the audio to carry, or the effects like the reverb, tails and the delays, feedback and everything to carry over as I move through this. I don't want it to just cut off because then it sounds like shit. So the way to get around that in Ableton is if you build a sound like I built this mini riser here, and I did this in Reason again with the effects on it. And I'll just play it, but it's going to be towards the end of it's all the way over here where it triggers. But, oh, I'm not even showing it to you. Yeah, so what you have to do, you have to think about, okay, well, what's going to carry over after it's triggered? And the only thing that does that is this drum rack. So I sampled the sound with the effects, and it's one trigger, boom. And you can hear it's got all the reverb and everything. And if I switch over to the next one, you can still hear the trails from the reverb and the delay, etc. So that's how I got around that. I don't like doing that a lot because it's a lot of extra work to process that. And then obviously you're having to try and manually get the stuff to trigger in a drum rack, and it's just a big pain in the ass. So I prefer to do things within Live with the effects. And actually, because of limited CPU power on my mobile system, I have to try and make sure that the CPU limiter on here doesn't go above like 40. I could probably get away with 50, but it's much more than that because I'm just using Surface tablets. So those things obviously don't have the processing power as my high-end desktop here that I built. So that's another limitation. When I go through, like when I'm making everything, it can be as crazy as I want. I can be maxing out the CPU on this machine, but then I've got to try and find a way to cut it down to where the processing power is not as intense, so that it can be ported over to my mobile unit and I can play and mix it in my shows. So that's something I always keep an eye on. With this one, I think it's still not quite optimized for live. Like if we play the main portion where it's got everything going and the chorus here. Right here, maybe? Nope, that's the build. So this is actually hitting at 60%, and part of that may be because I've got all this other shit open because of the stream. But anyway, I need to optimize this now to get it down to like 40%, 45% for it to play without interruption on my mobile rig. And the way I usually do that is I come into my master chain over here, because pretty much on my master bus I always have Isotopes Ozone. This is Ozone 7 Advanced. And what I'll do, and this track I'm actually doing a lot more limiting on it than I normally do. Normally just the main limiter is enough, but the way this one is mixed and because of the sound variation, I think that I decided to add this vintage limiter on here. But when I'm doing my live show, that kind of stuff isn't as important as getting a track ready for release. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll turn off this vintage limiter, I'll just bypass it, and then the maximizer I will take from the IRC 4, and I'll take it down to like IRC 1, something that's way less CPU hungry, because this is probably a good chunk of what's going on. Like if we go and we turn this to 1 right now, it's gonna make a liar out of me. What if we bypass it? What if we bypass these two? It's still hitting at 60%. Anyway, I'm telling you that normally will take your CPU down quite a bit. Again, I think part of this is because I'm running other things in the background while I do this. But anyway, that's my problem. It's not your problem, so don't worry about it. Another thing I did on this track that's just kind of new for me is I mixed it in mono. So if we go into mono mode on here, and this is one of the great things about Ozone, is you can go and just with the click of a button, it's mono, boom. And when you mix in mono, it makes so much sense because if it sounds good in mono, it's going to sound amazing in stereo. And the main thing is a lot of clubs, and even things like phones. Like, where's my phone? This thing, this is a Galaxy Edge 7 or whatever. It's got a mono speaker on it. So when I listen to my shit on this, it's coming out mono. And one of the things that ends up happening if you don't pay attention to something like this is you'll get a lot of phase cancellation. You won't be able to hear certain sounds as clear. And you'd be like, why does it sound good when I play it on my monitors, my stereo monitors, but then I play it on my phone and I can't hear some of the stuff? That's because you've got phase cancellation, and what you need to do is mix your shit in mono. So that's something that I did. This is the first time I really paid attention to that. I always try to kind of listen on a variety of speakers and systems and stuff before I release to try and fix that type of thing. But it's something that in Ozone that you can just turn this on and you can kind of tell right away. So if we play this in mono, it doesn't sound obviously as good, but you can hear all the sounds. There's nothing's being canceled out. So turn that off, turn it on. Just A/B it, right? So, and it's sometimes you'll forget. You'll be mixing in mono and you'll be like, shit. And then you go and turn that off and you're like, wow, that sounds great. So anyway, let me turn this back on there, and then it's still turned on. So anyway, I think that's about it. It's almost 1 in the morning here, so I'm gonna hit the sack because I got some work to do in the morning. But thanks for checking out the show. I try and stream on Sundays, and because of the way the day works out, I usually do them late. So if you're interested in checking that out, please be sure to subscribe and get the notifications when I do these if you're up late. Otherwise, just catch them on the replay. Anyway, thanks again, guys. Have a good one.